what happens if you have a placement advisor and how does that change?
That I can do.
Yeah.
I think it's statistically about 20% of the people who are placing their family members use a placement advisor. So there's 80% of you out there in the United States that don't have any guidance, and my hat is off to you. That also, though, without having guidance, creates an opportunity for a fairly a quick move right after that initial move, because sometimes mistakes are being made.
Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard across the USA on your favorite podcast channel. And please check us out on YouTube. And we are going to be referring to our YouTube series that we just came out with the assistance and the amazing expertise of our guest here today. So I all want you to check it out. There's a 6-part series on placement advisors. What do they do? How do they work? And how do they help your family? And remember, a placement advisor costs your family nothing. They're paid like realtors, but they can provide a wealth of information. And we are so blessed today to have Daphne Davis, the CEO and founder of Pinnacle Senior Placements, and a very active member of the National Placement Referral Alliance, which is NPRA. And Daphne, welcome back to the show. We're thrilled to have you here today.
I love being here. Yes, yes,
You,
yes.
well, Daphne, I am very interested. It's the time of year. It's springtime, late spring, early summer. People have their homes on the market and they're looking to downsize, maybe to go into a senior community. Maybe it's memory care. Maybe it's dementia care. Maybe it's an adult family home, what we call them in Washington State. There might even be independent living, downsizing just for active seniors. And so there's a lot of different options out there. I would like to create what's called a checklist in this hour. How do you as a family help your loved one through this process as an overview? And in this first segment today, I'd like to talk a little bit to you about your expertise of, let's take that 10,000-foot view and say, where do we even start? Let's say mom or dad now, they decide they want to start making a change. What happens next?
So I'm going to try really hard to do this from the perspective of families not having a placement advisor, not having someone walking alongside them and
Mhm.
telling them all the little details of how to have a successful transition, what to look for. And so this might be a little bit challenging for me, but I'm going to do my best.
Well, but we want you to explain the difference too, as
Yeah.
far as what happens if you have a placement advisor and how does that change?
That I can do.
Yeah.
I think it's statistically about 20% of the people who are placing their family members use a placement advisor. So there's 80% of you out there in the United States that don't have any guidance, and my hat is off to you. That also, though, without having guidance, creates an opportunity for a quick move right after that initial move, because sometimes mistakes are being made. So this is a wonderful thing to do. On the overview, first things first, be sure that you have a realistic, clear picture of who is needing to be finding housing and care. Let's just start with it being mom and dad. So
Yeah.
mom and dad, or one of them, really being objective, trying to get yourself out of the picture and your perspective of what you may think mom and dad are capable of doing or want,
Right.
but being able to look from their eyes. So the very first thing is assessing the situation. And that's pretty hard to do when you're close to someone and have a primary relationship as a
And you don't have the professional credentials either. So you're just going at it from a gut feeling. You don't understand maybe a care plan. You don't understand the medical type classification they may be in. They may be in a thing called palliative care, which you don't even know about. There's all different types of professional aspects that the average person, like when I was my mother's daughter taking care of things, I had no clue about any of these things.
That's right. It's very hard. So typically when this happens, it can come from a doctor that says, yeah, it'd be worthwhile to look at some options for mom and dad not being alone in their house. Or
Hmm.
there could have been something catastrophic that happened and got them in the hospital. Could have been something really big, like a broken bone of some kind, or a stroke or whatnot. So there are
Yeah.
varying stories. It could be just someone who doesn't want to go out in the rain and get their mail anymore, and they want their mailbox inside a building, and they want independent living. So there's all
Hmm.
kinds of scenarios. So first assess. Then the very, very next thing is assess what your budget is.
Yeah.
You all units, all communities, all forms of care, all from independent to assisted to memory care and
Hmm.
anything in between, it has a different pricing structure. And so
Absolutely.
you need to know what your budget is, not only the total amount that you have in terms of your budget, but what is your monthly expenditure that you can afford. There might
Hmm.
be cash flow issues that go along. Now, if you had an advisor, they'd be bringing all of these things up and they'd be working through it and they know on the
Hmm.
top of their head how much things cost. But now you're going to have to explore that. And
Yeah.
so, very often, if you have a book that you're looking at, very often that information is not going to be accurate.
Right.
It's going to be information that is at the lowest scale of pricing for rent and care. Know that there's two different things. If you're looking at assisted living or independent living in a large community, they're
Hmm.
split out. And so the numbers that you see are not going to include care. Look how many things you might trip over, and we haven't even gotten to the building yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's daunting. And it should be daunting. A lot of you have never done this before, so please don't beat yourself up. But
No.
the point I'm getting to is ask for help.
Yeah.
So know your budget and then know the location that you want to be in. Something that sometimes is overlooked or can cause frustration
Hmm.
is that siblings live in different areas of the same town,
Yeah.
but they're 30 minutes away from where mom and dad are. And then you throw in traffic, could be even worse. So you
Yeah.
need to understand what are the ramifications of where you choose to have your
Right.
parents living?
Well, and I think when you're talking about this whole assessment phase too, the family needs to get together and say, who is going to be the point person? And then the job of the rest of the family isn't to, once that person is decided upon, your job as a sibling to that person is to support them in the decisions that they make. And I think that's one of the things that I've seen sadly is siblings are at odds because they fight for control. And what happens is that that's not a good scenario. And I, one of the things that I've really emphasized and advocated for is always, whoever that point person is, mom or dad maybe have decided who that is because they trust them the most. Or maybe there's two people. One person handles the financial and one person handles the healthcare. The point in the matter being is families need to get along and be aligned. And sometimes that's very difficult if you don't have somebody like a Daphne that can help that family on the right path in the beginning.
Correct. And it might not even be an issue of who they trust the most, but who has different skill sets. And
Yeah.
so if you have different skill sets within your sibling group, tap into each one of those. Bringing back to how everyone can get along is establish what your highest values are. Have a litmus that you can talk about that does it meet our litmus test? Does it
Yeah.
have the values that we've established with mom and dad?
Yeah.
That we really have heard what they want and refer back to that. If you have a placement navigator working with you, that person will help you stay on track. It's a little
Right.
challenging just because you have primary relationships. So
Right.
as you're going through this process and now you've established your budget, you've established location, you've established your highest values, you've done some research, though it's probably not accurate, not your fault in terms of costs. The next
Hmm.
thing that you need to be aware of is do they convert to Medicaid? And whether you have $1 million in the estate or $25 in the estate,
Hmm.
you don't
Absolutely.
know what may happen in the future and how the care costs may change. We don't know what may happen to an estate.
Yes.
You
And We are going to talk about that in our next segment. So, Daphne, in the meantime, how do people reach you?
You can reach me at 855-734-1500, or you can go to Pinnacle Senior Placements.com.
And we'll be right back right after this. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.